Longacre's new waterproof stepper motor gauges are manufactured using the same techniques and manufacturing processes as a gauge that's used in watercraft and a gauge that's used in motorcycles. On the back of the gauge, you'll see that the unit's completely sealed up. The connector is a waterproof weather pack style connector, so there's no way to get water in these gauges. So you have no need to take them out of the car like you used to wash the car and have to worry about damaging the gauge. To install them, once your panel is installed in the car, slip the gauge into the panel. On the back there's a clamp with 2 nuts and washers using these studs. You tighten the clamp down. Be sure not to over tighten the clamp. If you over tighten the clamp, you run risk of damaging the back side of the gauge. Once the gauges are mounted in the dash panel, you can then start installing your sensors. When you install that, you want to install it on one of our pressure blocks. We have these in a 1 sensor, a 2 sensor, and a 3 sensor block. What's important about this is these little sensors are very, very fragile. So the harmonics and the heat that comes being mounted directly to the engine block can damage the sensor. We are requiring you to use this pressure block and mount it to your firewall in some location away from heat and vibration. Once you've got this sensor mounted, and then hook your connectors from the sensor to the lead line to the gauge. Next, you can install the water temperature sensor. Wherever you normally install that on the engine is fine. It's not at risk of having problems with vibration and whatnot. So if you can install it on your intake, you can install it on the side of the head, you can install it in a radiator, just wherever you want to install it to get a good temperature reading. After that, you're ready to hook the power supply to the gauges. On our stepper motor gauge, you'll have a black wire that'll go to ground. You'll have a red wire that will go to a continuous power supply. And then you'll have a yellow or a brown wire that goes to the ignition switch. On the LED gauges, you have the black wire that goes to your ground, and then you have a red wire that goes to your gauge switch. Once you've got everything set up, power the gauges on, at that time you can go through and you can set your warning settings on either style gauge. To do that, simply hold the 2 buttons. You'll see the needle come up to the first warning setting. You then use the right button to adjust it up. If you need it to go down, you have to go all the way around to the highest setting and it'll come back to 0. You can adjust it where you want it. Once you have that set, you hit the left button to go to the next setting, and then you can adjust your brightness of the gauge. To adjust the brightness, you just hit the right button each time, and there's 5 different settings for brightness on this gauge. Once you have those 2 warnings set up and you have the brightness set up, hit the left button and it'll put the gauge back into its running mode. The LED gauge works the same way. Hold the 2 buttons for your first warning. You hit the right button to adjust that up. If you want to go down, you have to go to the highest setting and it'll come back. The left button to go to your next setting, and then your left button to go to your brightness setting. And then once you're done, you hit the left button to go back to the operating mode. Once all of your warnings are set and your gauges are operating, it's time to go race.